Hi, welcome to Soundpoint. I'm Eric and this is Dane. We got a really exciting show for you guys today. We're going to be discussing the Rolling Stones' top 5 bands of all time.
Shall we start?
This list of 5 bands and artists that the Rolling Stones has deemed the best 5 bands of all time. Their criteria wasn't very clear. I think it's just like the editor-in-chief going, yeah, I really like this band.
Yeah, why not? I heard of them.
Michael Jackson, I hear, is really good.
You guys heard about this new band? They're called the Beatles. To the list.
So number 5 is Chuck Berry.
Interesting call, Rolling Stones.
I think they put him in here only because he started rock and roll.
He was actually one of the first players of guitar to bring the guitar out in the main front. Before that, it was pretty much just like plucky, like bling-a-ding, bling-a-ding.
It was a support role.
As opposed to Chuck Berry, that was like, all of it was about the guitar and electric.
A lot of people call him like the Godfather. His stage presence was, I think the energy was way higher, and the technical skill, especially in the new blues fashion, completely revolutionary. But he was.
I can see why they put him on this list. I don't think I'd put him on this list. Not because I don't think he should be. I don't know him that well.
You know, there's Johnny Be Good, which Marty McFly taught him.
We really should be thanking Michael J. Fox
Yeah.
for giving Chuck Berry that song.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael J. Fox. You're a true inspiration.
Laser Eyes. Number 4, obvious choice, the Rolling Stones.
They named the magazine after,
Yeah.
so they would put them on there.
Yeah, I wonder if the Rolling Stone magazine or the band came first.
I think it's like a chicken and egg thing.
Yeah.
You know, no one really knows.
Rolling Stones makes it to every top 5 list, every top 10 list. Number 4 isn't a surprise. A little bit of a personal disappointment. They beat a lot of people that I personally would put.
There are definitely bands that I feel should be there. That's just more or less our opinion.
Yeah, people are going to hate us for this.
We are not Stones fans. They are pretty overrated. That's just us. We know that they were influential.
What I give Stones credit for is over-sexualizing rock and roll. They were the original sexiness. They brought it to a whole new level, sexually overcharged.
They're still doing that, even though they're like 105 now. So
Keith Richards is like a walking skeleton now. Braids. And rock and roll!
Sex, drugs, brains, and rock and roll. 28 days later, Keith Richards wakes up as a zombie.
The hills have Keith Richards. Let alone Mick Jagger.
I don't think anybody needs to touch that. Not even Mick Jagger wants to touch that. He does have gigantic mouth lips.
Oh my god.
I
His
know,
mouth
right?
could swallow a small kumquat.
He would be the most terrifying zombie ever.
Getting away from the point.
Right, okay.
The Stones, when I hear Satisfaction, even I go, dun, 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 dun. I mean, it just fucking rocks.
And rolls. It's true. Yeah, everybody's like, man, they rock. But you forget about how bands roll, too. They roll with the punches.
They roll out.
They roll
Like a G6.
like a G6.
Also not a really big surprise. Elvis Presley.
You want to talk about the first person to bring sex to rock and roll?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to give a shout out to the King.
You don't get a title like the King and not belong at least in the top 5.
This is one that I actually agree with.
If the Stones over-sexualized rock and roll, he sexualized that.
That's stepping stone for them to basically go overboard.
Yeah. And when you see girls fainting at a concert, girls were dying for him. Bye Bye Birdie. I mean, it's basically Elvis
It's
Presley.
based on him. I mean, he could just take a stage and just command it. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the power of Elvis Presley.
His later career, you know, just took a dive.
Yeah.
He just became kind of sad at the end there. You know, he was doing things like the Hawaii surfing movie, and he died on the John.
Nobody wants to die that way.
Especially the King. The King should die in a semi-dignified manner.
Getting overrun by a gaggle of girls. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, that would have been a good death.
If he died from paparazzi.
We should make a top 5 ways Elvis should have died.
Number 5, drowns in pool.
Number 4, ODs at a ridiculous sex party.
Number 3, a homosexual sex scandal.
Number 2, runs naked through the streets on a bender and has to get gunned down by police.
Preferably with helicopter and attack dogs.
And of course, no clothes.
And number 1, of course, dying, coming back in 3 days, and then ascending to heaven.
You know, a lot of people think that he did that anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of people say he just went home. You know,
Yeah, he just took off in his,
his
rhinestone spaceship.
I actually think it was bedazzled.
He took a ride with Michael J. Fox into the future just to bedazzle his spaceship. Facts with sound point.
Boom.
Done. Out of everyone on this list, he's probably the easiest to impersonate. And yeah, and then the hip shake.
I've only heard of one other artist that really has as many impersonators as Elvis Presley. That's Michael Jackson. If you have an impersonator, you have an Elvis Presley impersonator, or you have Michael Jackson.
Every girl in college who goes to 80s parties knows how to Thriller. Speaking of people to impersonate on this list, Dylan.
Yes, Mr. Bob Dylan himself.
Again, not a surprise. Bob Dylan is number 2.
Yeah, right.
Dylan from the 60s and early 70s.
Yes, we have to clarify. It's the massive swan dive that was his Christmas album.
Like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Dylan is not good anymore. One of our mottos, we don't start disliking bands because they get popular. We dislike bands because they start to suck. And no one is above that rule. No one.
The old Dylan, I mean, I personally think his songwriting is amazing. But as an artist, I definitely think he deserves to be in the top 5. Yeah. Like, he wasn't the first one to do folk music, but he made it extremely popular.
Actually, someone I think that can take Dylan's place in this list is Pete Seeger. American folk revivalist, amazing songwriter, and he's still in touch. His career's never gotten shitty. He still goes to protests.
He was a major influence on Dylan himself.
Yeah, he's a lifelong artist.
Dylan is way more popular.
Yeah.
And, because of everything that he's gone through in his life. So I could see that.
And he got the number 1 band on this list, High, for the first time. As you could have guessed, number 1, Motley Crue. No, just kidding. Number 1, The Beatles. The Beatles.
The Beatles.
The Beatles.
Beatles.
Beatles. The Beatles. Motley Crue. The most underrated band of all time. Influential, revolutionary, and sounded good. They're just like the trifecta of good band. The Beatles really set into place the 4-member rock and roll band. Your front man, your guitar player, your bass player, and your drummer. Fab 4.
They were always number 1.
If you don't believe us, seriously, go home and listen to Sgt. Pepper's. I'm going to make one caveat about the Beatles. I don't like all the Beatles personally. Lennon seemed kind of pompous.
He was kind of a dick.
Paul McCartney went on to not really do much and write anything after the Beatles. I mean,
come on, Wings. Baby, I'm afraid of the way you love me all the time.
Yeah, there's no knocking a couple of songs.
There's a story about the Beatles where it was John Lennon that started writing the songs and Paul McCartney finished them. And I didn't really believe that till you started seeing what Paul McCartney made afterwards.
John Lennon was musical genius. He was like the catalyst.
Yeah.
And Paul McCartney was concept man, pieced everything together.
A pseudo-manager.
He took John Lennon's inspiration and molded it into something. George Harrison, nothing bad to say.
No. He wrote a bunch of songs. He wrote Here Comes the Sun once.
While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
He was just a great guitar player and just artist in general. He was okay with, in the Beatles, not being the spotlight, not being the one that everybody pushed for.
Yeah.
But
he was
of course,
cutest.
Yeah. There was a Beatle you're going to get down with.
This is George.
Big old George. Then Ringo. Because I feel that he would appreciate you. He's not the best. He knows that he needs to prove himself.
And he's the most likely to live over 80. He wrote one really good song after the Beatles. What was the one where he goes, oh my god, I'm dying on the inside.
He can't remember it, ladies and gentlemen.
No!
He can't think of it. I always thought it was While My Guitar Gently Weeps as a kid, and then I figured out that that was a Beatles song, so...
I gotta go look at it now.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Come on.
Oh, and he's gonna just leave it running. Sweet.
I remembered.
All right.
Okay. My Sweet Lord.
My Sweet Lord, you finally got it.
Then finally, the fourth Beatle,
Ringo. Little known fact, in Sgt. Pepper's, he sang...
Hi, for little help from my...
It's funny, they kept it in like a 5-note range because that's all he could sing. It's just 5 notes. Do you need anybody? That was the other guys. Somebody to love. Do you need
Turn off his mic. Turn off his mic.
I need somebody to love.
Other Ringo songs: Octopus's Garden, Maxwell's Silverhammer, Yellow Submarine.
They say that they're dying based upon their talent. John Lennon died first. He was the most talented then. George. Better watch out, Paul McCartney.
We're coming for you.
Soundpoint proclamation.